Welcome to eWay podcasts from the world of CRM, business, and entrepreneurship. The name of today's podcast is Fake News, and the question is if we really have to live in a lie. Let's take a look together at how false or distorted news is moving the world, and how to distinguish fake news from real. Today, fake news rules over politics and opinions of the general public. A common practice is misusing fake news in advertising. In today's episode, we'll have a look at how often we see fake news in the digital space and how to spot it. The first part of today's podcast will focus on the fake news phenomenon and on the two basic types of false messages. In the second part, we'll tell you how you can evaluate the credibility of any online content by asking 5 simple questions. And in the third part, we'll discuss the usage of fake news in marketing, go over specific examples, and present our opinion on why implementing fake news in any strategy is actually not such a good idea. The first part, what is fake news? People all over the world are subject to fake news. According to research done by Ipsos during October 2019, over 94% of Czechs believed fake news at least once, and 55% of the Czech population was a victim of fake news on multiple occasions. Fake news is often used to manipulate public opinions, mainly related to politics, but it's also widely used in marketing. Attention-grabbing false news is used as clickbait to increase the revenue from ads. Fake news has become widespread as the internet and, more importantly, social networks became more popular. As with these tools, anyone can spread basically any content. The internet is an awesome place to express opinions. Unfortunately, it's becoming obvious that people cannot distinguish between an opinion and unbiased, confirmed facts. This results in people unknowingly sharing false messages, which, consequently, spreads it to more and more recipients. Facebook, YouTube, and fake news websites are channels used the most for spreading disinformation into the world. There are two main categories of fake news, based on how it handles facts and for what purpose it's created and spread. Let's take a look at these two categories in more detail. First category, half-truths. Partially true news falls into this category. Authors of such articles either don't check all the facts or exaggerate some on purpose to make the article sound a particular way. This results in a biased article with a tendency to present only some of the information or a particular point of view on a given matter. A typical Czech example is the news title, "A Shocking News If Confirmed. The 1992 dissolution of Czechoslovakia is invalid." This fake news was shared in 2016 on social media by tens of thousands of Czech citizens. But the issue is that this article shockingly didn't present any shocking news. So, what was it about? The text stated that according to applicable legislation, a referendum was required for the split of the Federal Republic. And because there was no referendum, the authors stated that the dissolution of Czechoslovakia is unlawful and thus invalid. But the facts are clear and in opposition to this nonsense. The Federation did not cease to exist because one of the two member states decided to leave. It ceased to exist as a whole. It's true that the article refers to applicable legislation at that time, but it twists the truth just to create a sensation. The second category, fake news. Fake news is the second, more dangerous category. The author deliberately creates fake news with the aim to persuade the readers to believe or at least visit a given website. Why? The site usually generates revenue from increased traffic, meaning more visitors equals more profit. Typically, fake news has titles in all capital letters and preview pictures that are clearly photoshopped. Such articles aim to arouse negative emotions, fear, and a feeling of threat. A well-known example of such fake news is a photoshopped image of refugees on the roof of a train in Czech city Cheb. The image was spread by Czech users of Facebook during the refugee crisis of 2015. It was shared by thousands of people daily, even though the original picture was quickly found and proved the picture spread over social media as just a fake Photoshop picture. What's even more absurd is the fact that the same picture reappeared on social media again in 2017. And the result? Exactly the same thing happened. It was shared en masse despite the fact that it was already proven to be fake 2 years prior. This example shows how easy it is to spread obviously fake content on social media and use it to manipulate public opinion. Such types of news can have far-reaching political and social impacts and can become a very effective and dangerous tool to drive social changes. In the first part of today's podcast, we explored what fake news is and divided the concept into two categories: half-truths and fake news. Now, we will look at this phenomenon from a more practical point of view. In our globalized world, we are being swamped with news and messages, and therefore it's more important than ever to distinguish what's real and what's fake. Let's explore how we can do that. The second part, how to distinguish between real and fake news. The goal of quality journalism is to inform and educate, as well as to persuade or entertain its readers. Fake news falls under so-called yellow journalism, which is an umbrella term for gutter press and non-ethical approaches to journalism. Fake news in general conveys fear, sensation, or other strong emotions. Emotions are the key word, as the goal is to cause an emotion and exploit it. The line between legitimate and manipulative journalism is very subtle. So-called fake news websites publish a plethora of misleading or completely false articles, which, thanks to social media, have an enormous reach. Occasionally, we all stumble upon a very interesting article while browsing the web, an article that just screams to be shared. But make sure to stop and think about its content before clicking the share button. It might be obviously fake, and such cases are the easy ones to spot, but usually fake news can camouflage itself well. How do we distinguish between real and fake news? Fortunately, there are several clues that can help you to easily spot fake news. Just begin by asking yourself a few basic questions. Question number 1. Was the news also published by another source? Today, all major news is released by a wide range of media, so you'll hear about real news from various trustworthy newspapers. And legitimate articles should also contain credible sources. If you see something on a single server and you can't find it anywhere else, it's the first red flag that shouldn't be ignored. That might indicate that the news is untrue. Articles on check fake news websites often refer to foreign websites, but don't get fooled, as these sites are mostly used in order to spread disinformation. The number of fake news on the internet has skyrocketed in recent years, and that gave rise to a number of specialized websites, online tools, and apps that focus on information verification. They are knights of justice who fight to expose hoaxes and false news, to put an end to them before they start spreading. In our check pond, we have sites like hildesipes.org, hoax.cz, and manipulatory.cz. You can also try a mobile app called NewsKit, and to verify foreign news, you can use snopes.com. Question number 2. Do you know the site which published the news? You should trust not only the site which published the news, but also the site you used to verify it. Simply put, you should know both sources. You should also ask who the journalists that wrote the news are, and who owns or finances the site where it was published, as it also gives you important context. If the author is unknown or uses a pseudonym, or if the site is missing information about the editorial office, then there's no one actually held responsible for the news, and therefore there is no reason to trust it. Question number 3. If you don't know the site, does it look reliable? We can't know every news website there is, that's logical. Mainly on social media, the users see a lot of news that is published on unknown sites. And you don't have to just blindly disregard every unknown source. You should start to be suspicious if there is something amiss about the website. Maybe it tries to imitate the design of a well-known online newspaper, or instead of running on .cz, .com, or a similar domain, it's using a weird one you never heard of. These are the first signs of fake news websites. Question number 4. Are the citations used in line with a message? It's true that the validity of a message cannot be judged only on the merits of the previous questions. The fact that you don't know a given site or can't validate the news on a different one doesn't necessarily mean it's fake. There are a lot of clues that can help you realize that you're reading fake news. Citations or quotations are a great example. These don't always verify the message. Try copying the whole citation in a suspicious article and search for it on the internet. Is it purposely used out of context? Authors often use parts of given citations in order to make their manipulative content look more real, but usually there is no correlation between the original citation and the fake message. Question number 5. What if the message contains photos or videos? You should pay special attention to pictures. If a photo is the key part of any message, you can try downloading it and validating it using Google Photo Search. If you're using Google Chrome, you don't even need to download the picture, just right-click on it and select Find Image using Google. In this way, you can easily find the source of a given image. Maybe you find that the picture has nothing to do with the topic of an article you're reading. Maybe it was taken at a different time and place and is no longer relevant. The same can be said about videos. If an article contains one, it doesn't make it real, as proven by the deepfake trend. It's a technology that can swap faces in a video. Hanifa Reid, a digital forensic science expert at Dartmouth College, closely follows the deepfake phenomenon, and she thinks that videos with swapped faces will play a huge role in the upcoming American elections. But how do you tell if a video is fake? The Guardian states that deepfake can be identified by lower video quality or by the people in the video blinking in an unnatural way. Well, that still makes it tricky to identify one. The second part of this podcast was about the 5 basic questions you should ask yourself when you're trying to distinguish real and fake news. These questions are: 1. Was the news also published by another source? 2. Do you know the site which published the news? 3. If you don't know the site, does it look reliable? 4. Are there citations used in line with the message? 5. What if the message contains photos or videos? There are a lot of guides on how to spot fake news. Unfortunately, as fake news websites and their strategies develop, we see an increasing number of fake news that is carefully thought through and sophisticated, making it harder to spot them. In the last part, we'll answer the question if fake news can help us in marketing. The third part, disinformation in an advertisement. You might think that fake news might be an interesting approach to marketing, but beware. Our society thinks very poorly of fake news, so it could really hinder your brand. And if you are using fake news and your customers catch you, you might be in real trouble. In 2017, the Ohio Pork Council Company launched a marketing campaign based on fake news. These pork meat producers released an official statement about a shortage of bacon in the whole state. Following this statement, the sales of bacon immediately increased, even though it was just for a short while. Let's have a look at another, this time local example. A while ago, there was similar news released announcing a shortage of butter in the Czech Republic. It's true that fake news can temporarily increase sales, but if the clients discover the truth, the business will suffer a long-term negative impact. And this applies to marketers managing advertising campaigns as well as to small businesses in which the owner often leaves the marketing to ad agencies. Wait a minute, you might say, I'm not spreading any fake news, and that's all good, but as a company, you might be connected to fake news in several ways. For example, if you buy advertising space on fake news websites. If you have a limited marketing budget, try focusing on interesting websites relevant to your customers, as these have lower but more interesting and relevant traffic. Fake news might seem like a magic pill for your marketing, but it backfires more often than you think. Why gamble with a good reputation of your brand? If you just want to target a broad audience with a minimal budget, consider an interesting guerrilla marketing campaign. We talked about this strategy in one of our previous podcasts called Guerrilla Marketing: When Ideas Replace Money. Always keep in mind that whatever becomes viral also becomes unpredictable, and a dishonest approach tends to come back to bite you. In today's podcast, we talked about the fake news phenomenon. The first part was dedicated to explaining what fake news is and what types there are. During the second part, we presented 5 questions that should help you validate any content and distinguish the real news from fake ones. And during the third part, we talked about fake news and marketing and pointed out the reasons why you should stay away from implementing these methods into your marketing strategy. So, what is today's takeaway? Every day we are swamped by information, and it's more important than ever to distinguish between what's real and what's misleading and manipulative. Every message we share in social media should first undergo our quality control, if only by answering the 5 questions we presented in this podcast. Personally, for our marketing, fake news is forbidden territory, as even though there might be some short-term potential, the long-term risks to our brand and reputation would be at stake, and we are not going to risk that. And it's up to you if you evaluate the content of this podcast as valid. You've been listening to an eWay podcast. The article was written by Andres Svoboda, spoken by Cliff Coma. For more inspirational audio records, please visit our blog at blog.eway-crm.com, podcast section.